Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. Well, I'm getting out a product today that I haven't been using much recently, and that always means it's time to give it a go again, and I want to challenge myself today to do a technique, I guess, that I'm not good at, and that is leaving white space. I guess you're either someone that is really comfortable with that or not so comfortable, and I am ultimately one who is not so comfortable, and I always feel the need to kind of cover up a bit more. In saying that, I think that I can be quite a clean and simple card maker, but here's my challenge today. So I am starting off with some texture paste. I have not used this in a long time. There are lots of different varieties out there. There are lots of different brands. There are lots of different types. I quite like that the Crafters Workshop, the light and fluffy one. I've used that almost to the end of it. And I also like this Ranger one here, just the texture paste. This is the opaque version. They have transparent versions. There are versions with glitter in it. There are versions with all sorts. So you can also color this if you are going for a colored look. Now I have regular bigger stencils here, but then I also purchased these ones from Creative Expressions. These are like mini versions. So this mini brick wall one here, I quite like the idea of doing that if you just want a finer print, if you're going to have something more concentrated for, slightly smaller elements. So I'm going to do a little bit of all. I'm actually going to do a couple of finished cards for you today. The first one, I'm just going to use this gorgeous big brick stencil, brick wall, and I have used some mint tape, which is just a low-tack tape, and I am creating just a focal point to the left-hand side of my card. These cards today are 5 by 5 inches. I'm making them square. I have some envelopes to use up, honestly, and that's what started off this whole idea of making the 5 by 5 card, but that's okay. I don't like things going to waste, so I may as well make whole cards around the idea that I have these 2 envelopes to use up. So you can see the gorgeous texture paste there. I put it on relatively thick because I like that texture. Now what's really important is that I have used some heavyweight cardstock. This is around 300 GSM, it's 110 pound, and that is going to mean that it doesn't warp the inside because we're adding a liquid product on the front. Now moving on, this is the Pink and Main Leafy dies. I've used this many times before, but I want to create a little bit of a mixed media-ish background to die cut these out of. Now I'm actually going to do a far bigger piece than I need because I'm doing several projects off screen that I'm going to use this for, but I may as well use it for this one too. So I'm just using up leftover ink that is on my finger daubers. This happens to be the Cobblestone bold print from Hero Arts. It's a cling background stamp. I'm just taking a little corners of it, adding some Mowed Lawn Distress ink. I'm just taking kind of anything. This is really something that you don't have to be too particular about. I'm taking the faded type from Tim Holtz, and I am using sort of the finer script, and then I'm going to go ahead and use larger script. I'm using old paper Distress Oxide ink, and then I'm going to come in with some, I think it's weathered wood, and it's a little bit darker. Then I have some stencils, and I'm going to come in with some Lunar paste, and I'm just going to use my finger for this because it's sort of really easy. I like the idea of adding some shiny elements. I like the idea of adding some texture to this. So this one here is the Minty Fresh color. This is a gorgeous color, and I love this in his ink, Simon Hurley's inks as well. And now the idea around this is I just don't think when I'm doing this. I think the more that I do think, the trickier I find this sort of process. So I just put it all down, and I am cutting out a die out of this. I'm cutting something out of it, so it doesn't have to be perfectly, a perfectly even background or anything like that. I'm going to be doing some die cutting, so absolutely fine. Then I have this sort of splotchy, I don't know, drops, water drops, paint drops stencil, and I'm going to add some of the gold. This is the Gold Rush color. And again, I'm just using my finger, so there is a little bit of texture there, but also a little bit goes a really long way, and it's just really easy and quick to apply. So that was a fun background to make, and it didn't take me long at all. I've got some gorgeous shiny elements on there as well as some background noise, so I'm pretty happy with how this looks. Now, I also did the same for a red kind of one, pinks, I guess, and I really honestly just put some ink pads literally down onto the paper. Again, I'm die cutting out of this, so you're not going to see the big picture here. So I know they look a little bit messy, but trust me and wait till the end. I am going to put a piece of Stick It adhesive on the back of a 4 1/4 by 5.5 piece of paper because I'm going to create the main element that I will die cut out here. So I want to use, again, some of the Lunar paste, and I'm just going to use my fingers. You absolutely can use a brush, you could use a makeup sponge, you could use a finger dauber, you could probably use a palette knife, you can use, I don't know, even just a scraper card to apply these. I am just going to go to town, I'm using my fingers, and honestly this was a lot of fun. My favorite thing about using these is that they come off your fingers nice and cleanly. They're not going to stain them or anything like that. So that makes it much easier. I just wanted a gorgeous, shiny sort of background. This is going to be sort of fine detail die cutting, as you'll see in a little bit. So it doesn't matter what it looks like. Again, it's just going to be gorgeous and shiny. And honestly, I was really thoroughly enjoying the play. Now, here is the card when it's dry, and you can see no warping on the inside. However, if you don't have thick cardstock, or you're worried about warping, or your paper just does warp, then you can do it on a separate piece of paper like I have here. I did exactly the same process. I did all of the same masking, everything, and I'm just going to cut these out with a trimmer and then put them onto a card front, and then that way I'll make at least one of each so that you can just see a couple of different options, because in my opinion, in card making, there is always options. There's always something that we can do to make it work. So I'm cutting this down fairly close to the edge actually. Now, because again, this is going to be white on white, I am going to give this a little bit of dimension. So I put plenty of foam tape there behind this. This is my favorite foam tape, and as usual, it's always linked below. There is a skinny one and there is a wider one, and I love both. Now, I know it's a little bit hard. All of these cards are a little bit hard to pick up on camera because they are so white on white, but there is lots of dimension, there is lots of texture, which I think is a great added element, especially when you're making such plain and simple cards. Now, this is the Word Fragments stamp set. This is an oldie but a goodie. It is very much still available. This is a great stamp set, which I have been using over and over again recently. I've sort of rediscovered it in my stash, and so I'm just going to stamp out a few of these. I prefer to stamp a few at a time. That way I can cut them out and have them ready to go for next time, and I can store them in the back of my packaging. Then I use my Tim Holtz scissors. These are these long bladed ones, and that means I can cut around this nice and evenly, because if I try and do it with little short scissors, little cutter bee scissors, it's not happening. Now, you guys can watch my mistakes happen. I love sharing them. I'm using some black soot Distress Oxide ink to do a few spritzes. Now, that one spray of water that I did right there covered the inside of one of the cards. So that was brilliant. So I was like, okay, that will teach me for spraying black ink when it is close, but that's okay. We're just moving forward and we'll fix that mistake later. So I know this feels like cheating, where I'm adding some black splatters just because I stamped the sentiments in black ink, so I just need something to draw it in. Now, I cut out some of the hearts here, and then I added some of the same Lunar paste that I used in the background. I added that just around the edge, just with my finger, and this is going to create some very, very simple hearts, but they have a lot of texture going on, and they also have a lot of shine, which is great. And then, as I said, I'm just adding lots of different elements so that what is a really plain and simple card still has a lot going on and still has a lot to catch your eye. As I said, it doesn't translate particularly well on camera, but in person, these ones are gorgeous. So I am going to put a little piece of foam tape just on one half here so that I can pop this up and snuggle it into those hearts. As I said, I'm trying to very much be okay with leaving all of this white space. I think even a little bit of white foliage might have been extra, but this is just me wanting to keep adding things. So I very much had to resist today. I wanted to keep adding things. I very much did, but this is the idea. I'm forcing myself to make white space, and sometimes it's not about what I prefer, it's about pushing myself out of my comfort zone and being okay with that. So this is card number 1. There is lots of shine to it, dimension, texture, all good things. So I'm happy with this one, and I love how the second one comes out even more. So we're going to be working on this one now. Here's that gorgeous background that we created, super, super shiny. I'm going to take one of the dies that is the outline die here. Now, these two can be used separately. They can also be used together to layer up. Now, I'm doing this right squat in the middle of my project, of my piece of paper here, because I'm actually going to use the negative for a project as well. So that was on purpose. Otherwise, I would do it like this, where I put it up in the little corner or something where I can get the most out of it. So I have die cut that out. Now the outline has stickered adhesive on the back, but this one does not. I can just use normal glue. There's heaps of space to use normal glue on this one, and we want to save and use the stickered adhesive just for the occasions when I absolutely need it, like this gorgeous fine detail here. And you can see even all of that the work that I did to the background, it's not really noticeable. You will be able to see it in the other project I'm doing because I'm going to use the negative, but for this part, actually, it's really just a bonus. But it does create a gorgeous outline. I think this really makes it stand out and gives it a little bit of defining, a little bit more detail. And because I can just peel off that backing, I can pop the sticker on and we are good to go. So that is a gorgeous leaf. Again, lots of texture, lots of shine. And then I'm going to pop this on my brickwork. But here's that kind of, it's sort of black, it's grey, sort of black grey spots now. So to fix that, I'm going to take another little panel and pop this in the middle, because we can fix everything, we can keep going. I must admit, boy did I roll my eyes when I didn't learn my lesson that spraying the water onto that black ink would definitely make it go further, because it feels like when you do splatters or when you work with ink, it goes further than you think it will usually. So there we go, it's okay, no one will ever know the difference and we're good to go again. Now all I have to do here is use I'm using liquid glue so that I can move it around. This is the Ranger Multi-Medium in the matte finish. That's what's inside the glue bottle, and I pop it in there using a syringe. I have a video on my channel showing you exactly how to do that. Just search how to fill a glue bottle and it will come up. But I know that this glue is super strong. It's not going anywhere. Once it's dry, it is done. And if it squeezes out the side or anything like that, it's going to stay nice and matte, which is perfect for these types of projects. So here are my two finished cards today. I'm being okay with all of this gorgeous white space. Let me know what you think of these ones. As usual, I will have the supplies linked down below. But thank you so much for joining me. And I really appreciate all of the support. I appreciate those who have bought me coffees through the Buy Me a Coffee link down below. But other than that, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks, bye.